None of us suspected that this day would go down in history as the second massacre of Glencoe, a story that would endure a brief moment and then vanish forever into eternal night. Many of the thousands of brave men had served in the military. We had been preparing for the confrontation in the Highlands for a year, while the vampires drove their invasion armies across Europe and the entire American continent. We were granted a respite in the north of the British Isles. Supplies were running low. Our opponents knew that too. For days, we held out in our positions, hastily dug into the hills. We were prepared for anything, for a mechanized advance of their tank units, for an attack by their drone squadrons, or just a straight firefight. The armies were in position. They waited on the other side of the valley for us. I see them vividly before me. Black angels. They harnessed the technology of anti-gravitation. They floated towards us. Every move they made was unhurried. They took their time. Every step was a poem to the downfall of humanity. Red eyes peeled out of the darkness. They watched us, behind black masks, soulless demons, like ghosts from the realm of the dead. Blackwood and his officers gave the fire command. Our equipment was composed of remnants of the British Army. Much of it we had to assemble ourselves. We had only 10 tanks and a handful of guns. Vampires is too magical a term for these demons. They are mutants, deformed humans spat out by the gates of hell. Screams beyond the hills. I heard them. They did it on purpose, to intimidate us. Vampires are ice-cold killing machines, but above all, they are hunters. They love to push us further into a corner with each passing day, until their teeth were at our throats. We were to meet them with fire. That was the order and our collective desire. I heard of this one weapon. Swords, jumping blades made of nanotechnology. The vampires have dubbed them Banshee blades, because in battle they emit a scream reminiscent of the Death Fairy. They floated towards us. Our projectiles couldn't penetrate their newly developed plate armor. Shortly after, the tanks exploded, one after another. They fired guided missiles from their backs. If we were lucky, we could bring down a vampire from the sky. Shoot a part of them where the armor wasn't so thick. They were among us. With rattling bloodlust and the cry of metal, they drew their blades. Positions were abandoned. The first men fell. Mass panic ensued. The Black Angels slaughtered us in close combat, not with rifles and grenades. Their fists crushed bones. Boots shattered skulls. Their screaming blades cut red spirals through the air. In the chaos of battle, the veil of writhing bodies and red mist cleared. The figure of a young soldier became visible before me. He stood helpless before me, the rifle pressed tight against his chest. A black shadow darted across the sky and landed in the mist before him. He catapulted himself towards the soldier. It happened in the fraction of a second. The vampire struck, and I heard the scream of the sword, savoring the blood of the boy. The Black Angel cut him in two with a single blow. The legs fell and plunged into the blood-soaked earth. The torso held its own entrails in its hands. He screamed for a while longer. Then the merciful death took him. The vampire had long moved on, slicing through the ranks of the fleeing. I was too wounded to move. I touched my head and saw nothing but red. I realized I had cracked my skull open. They swung their blades like swordmasters. In the next moment, like cleavers. The butchers of humanity mowed through their cattle. I was alive. I searched for signs of life in other men. In their eyes, I found no movement. I crawled under a pile of corpses, hoping not to be discovered by them. "Drink yourselves full on their flesh," I heard a shadow mutter under the helmet. His voice was completely dehumanized. Cold, growling like a predator, metallic like a machine. Thousands had fallen. With our battered souls, the bloodthirsty angels ascended into the sky.
I close the book and must digest what I've read. My heart races, my lips tremble. I cannot describe the feeling that I feel. It's as if I have relived my father's suffering, me as his flesh and blood, its anger, grief, hopelessness. righteous anger and hatred for the empire of the night.